Intro. Life before the Bill of Rights was completely different. The U.S. government held immense power over its citizens, often without checks or limits. Back then, citizens could be punished for speaking out against their government and their legal rights were limited. This changed dramatically with the signing of the Bill of Rights in 1791. The Bill of Rights was a dramatic change for the USA, not only for the people directly involved, but also for the average American citizen. It marked a profound shift in the way individuals were protected from government overreach. James Madison, inspired by the Virginia Declaration of Rights, proposed the Bill of Rights in 1789, shortly after the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This set of amendments ensured protections for essential freedoms and helped to limit the government's power, which had been a significant concern for many in the new republic. The Bill of Rights, which was passed in 1791, came at a time when the young United States was still finding its footing. Before it, the citizens had limited guarantees against government action. For example, the Fourth Amendment prohibited unreasonable searches and seizures, providing much-needed privacy protections. The 10th Amendment reinforced the idea that any powers not specifically given to the federal government were reserved for the states, empowering local governments and citizens. The First Amendment, however, was perhaps the most transformative. Before its enactment, Americans had been punished or imprisoned for speaking out against their government, but the Bill of Rights guaranteed the freedom of speech, press, religion, and assembly. These rights, once available to many, became central to the American identity and paved the way for a government that was more accountable to its citizens. Before the Bill of Rights, Americans lived in a society where the government had the power to control and punish them in ways that we would consider unacceptable today. One example of a rule that would be hated by many today was the Sedition Act. According to National Archives, the Sedition Act made it a crime for American citizens to print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, and malicious writing about the government. Some people that were put on trial because of this are Benjamin Franklin Bach and Matthew Lyon. Matthew Lyon published a pamphlet that criticized President Adams. In the pamphlet, Matthew Lyon called him a monarchist. Benjamin Franklin Bach, Benjamin Franklin's grandson, was imprisoned because of what he wrote in the Philadelphia Aurora. He was an editor of this newspaper, and just like Matthew Lyon, he frequently criticized the government and President Adams. Matthew Lyon was in prison for about 4 months, and Benjamin Franklin Bach was in prison for about a month.
Who were the important figures that greatly contributed to the creation of the Bill of Rights? There were definitely many people who thought it was a necessity. The three people who are most likely the most important ones were Thomas Jefferson, George Mason, and Samuel Adams. The first one was Thomas Jefferson. During the drafting of the Constitution, he strongly believed in the necessity of it and wrote multiple letters to James Madison, urging the inclusion of it. Someone else who thought they needed a Bill of Rights was George Mason. He went so far as to not sign the U.S. Constitution in 1787 because it lacked a Bill of Rights. And now Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams was skeptical of the Constitution at first, but was on board after hearing about the Bill of Rights, believing it was essential for people to get all the rights they deserved. And finally, all the anti-federalists. All the people included on this list are anti-federalist. But this includes all the people that are not mentioned on the list. They felt that it was necessary due to the fact that the Constitution before the Bill of Rights was going to make the government too strong. They wanted more state rights, and it protected individual freedoms of speech. The U.S. Constitution didn't only help America. There were many countries that were inspired by the Constitution. It influenced some countries who didn't have one yet to make their own. For example, in February 1946, a group of 24 Americans helped Japan draft their own constitution. This happened after World War II because General Douglas MacArthur felt that Japan's original constitution was flawed. Another case of the Bill of Rights helping another country was with France. In 1789 to 1799, the U.S. Constitution influenced the French Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen. America didn't directly help France make their constitution. They were simply influenced by our constitution. Besides Japan and France, many other countries such as Germany, South Korea, and various Latin American nations have taken ideas from the U.S. Constitution when shaping their own government/constitutions. So how does this relate to the topic, rights and responsibilities? Well, it's simple. Almost all the rights you have today are because of the Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution. In conclusion, there are so many ways that the Bill of Rights helps us and gives us freedom, which is why it's so important that it exists, and it's crazy that all this didn't exist if it weren't for the anti-federalists who advocated it, such as George Mason, Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, and of course, James Madison.